Episode 8. We got my boy here, Tyler Carpenter from Drawan Talk. We're going to have us an awesome Silly Goose time, bringing that
Yep.
over and having some fun. We're going to talk about his work, what he's got going on right now, his creative process, things like that. So go ahead and pull up a chair, pour you a drink, and sit back. It's going to be a fun ride. So how you doing, buddy?
Dude, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Dude, no problem.
Just got home today, hung out with the family, and now, we're here. We're gonna have a silly goose time and
Heck yeah.
welcome. Nice to meet everyone who's watching.
Heck yeah, man. So, if you need to find Tyler, I got his link to his Twitter down below. I'll post a link to his YouTube in the description once I upload. You got a website?
Right now it's just gumroad.com/drawn talk.
Okay. I'll
But most
pop
of it's
that.
just on YouTube.
Okay, cool. I'll pop that down in the description as well. Um,
So
so we can have people go ahead and give you some love and give you a follow and everything. So I know you're working on Chef right now. Are you working on anything else, or are you just focusing all your time on that?
just focusing all my time on chefs. I normally like, and that's just in comic terms. Like I have my day job. I've got chefs. I have a marketing business. I'm starting. But yeah, in terms of comics, yeah, chefs is the only thing I'm working on right now, which I normally have like 4 or 5 projects happening, but since I'm the one who's drawing this book this time around, I'm really just focused on it, which is funny because I just jotted down another massive story that I want to do, and I have to figure out like, crap, do I do it? Do I hire someone? And now that I'm at the point where that I'm drawing my own books, I'm like, I don't want to pay someone
Right.
to else to draw my book. I'll just wait until Chefs is over, which could be in 4 to 5 years.
Right, right. So you're writing it too as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's funny because my channel is called Draw and Talk, and a lot of people are like, "Well, Tyler, you don't draw on on the channel," and I was like, "Yeah, you're right. I mostly just talk." When I got into comics, my art wasn't very good, and so over the last 5 years, I've been building up my skill level to a point where now I feel comfortable writing a book and drawing it. Most of the books I put out like a 14 issue series called Demons. I put out a graphic novel called Entity. Those were all artists that I paid to write to, and I wrote the stories. But now I'm at a point where I can draw my own books and I feel comfortable doing it.
That's awesome, man. I would love to get to that point. I just focus all of my stuff strictly on writing because that's where my skill lies, and I would love to draw my own book, but I have no idea where to start with that or how to even begin to learn how to do that.
Oh, dude, just get a pen and paper. That's where you start, dude. That's where you start. Get a pen and paper. Look at something that you like and watch some tutorial videos. It's so. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like it takes. I mean, I've been doing this for like I think 5 years now, and I'm only now at a point where I'm like kind of okay with people seeing my art.
Right, right. So what's it like, writing and drawing your book at the same time? Like, how do you balance that?
It's terrible.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's absolutely terrible. I'll be honest. Normally so with all my books, I normally write the script, send it to an artist. They send me the pages back. I color and letter it. Bada bing, bada boom. And now at the now and here and like while I was like backstory, while I was while I was writing my own books and paying artists, I got that money. The money that I used to pay my artists was money that I made by drawing other people's books in my not very good style that I had at the time. Even though I am an award-winning editorial cartoonist nationally.
Nice.
I have won a couple awards, but they're for like my cartoons that you'd see in a newspaper,
Right.
not comic books. So the money that I'd get from other people, I would then fund into my own comics. Well, now at this point, I have to write it. That takes time, and then I have to draw the line art, and that takes time. And I love that part. And now, once I'm done drawing the line art, I look at the page and I'm like, it's not done. I just spent like a couple hours doing this one page. Now I have to freaking spend another couple hours drawing it. So it's definitely tough. I mean, I try to wake up at 5 a.m. to draw in the morning before work. Most of the time doesn't happen. So you'll find me on my lunch breaks coloring my pages. And I'll do the line art for the pages at night. So like I made a deal with this gas station that's next to my work, and I said, "Hey, I know you guys have this abandoned subway that's connected to you. If I buy a soda from you guys every now and then, can I just draw here every day?" And they're like, "Yeah, we don't care. No one goes there." So
Nice.
that's where I go on my lunch breaks, um, to make my book to color my book. But yeah, it's so time consuming. And I also started at the worst time. I announced the book in October. I started drawing it in November. I was out of town for 2 weeks in November. I was then out of town for 2 weeks in December. I then bought a house in December. I moved in January. I had to remodel the house, and I picked the worst time to like start
Jesus.
making a book, but I told everyone February 15th
Oh
it
my
launches.
God. Oh my
Yes,
God. Oh,
I
it's
played
giving me
myself,
hives
man.
just thinking about that.
Yeah, I played myself. I was such a fool.
Oh, I can't even imagine. I struggle mentally just writing and going to work and then doing the podcast. I don't understand how. Oh, that's insane. That's awesome that you
Oh
do
yeah,
that though.
I mean, even that. I mean, I've also got my YouTube show,
Right? Yeah,
so
you've
I'm
got the
also putting
YouTube
out
show
like
too.
yeah. So I'm also doing like one to two pre-recorded videos. I got to edit them, not even counting the research beforehand. I've got to do I do live shows every like 2 or 3 times a month, and then I have like a Discord community that I have to help
Yep.
manage, for my draw and talk. Yeah, and then plus marketing business that I started, my own 9 to 5,
Yeah.
being a husband and father to my family. Like yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. That's
That's why I have the shades on. I just don't want anyone to see my eyes.
Oh my God. It's just bloodshot and pain.
It's just bloodshot, sadness, ton of regret.
There's nothing behind those eyes. I lost that a
Yeah,
long time ago.
exactly.
um,
Exactly.
yeah, and that community is great. If anybody needs advice or wants to get in a good community for writers and artists, 100% get in there. I'm in there. I met a lot of cool people through that community.
Thanks.
Um, like it was a great thing that you did. That is a hot spot of collaboration and community in the comic book world. That is it's all love. Every ounce of it is love and constructive feedback. There's no hate there.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good, yeah, I hate using this word, but it's a good safe space for writers to really stretch their wings and learn.
Yeah, one thing I wish that we did last year, that we didn't do no that we did 2 years ago, that we didn't do last year because of the whole pandemic and whatnot, that I wish we had done is last year we did in 2019 we did a Discord only um anthology where
Oh,
just people who are in the Discord, writers, would pair with an artist for a 1 or 2 page story.
oh, that would be
Um
awesome.
Yeah, and we did that, and then we published it we published it in February of 2020. And what was funny is it was called One Strange Year 2020.
Oh,
Not knowing that the
Jesus.
pandemic, yeah, not knowing that the pandemic was gonna happen, but yeah, like everything was themed around, like you had to insert 2020 somewhere in your story, and so yeah, we did that. Everyone collaborated. No one made money off of it, and then once we were all done with it, I put it into a PDF and I gave everyone the print ready file, and anyone can print that book off if they want and sell it
Nice.
and do whatever they want. No one owns the book. So I wish we had done that this year, but it just got too hectic. But I'm hoping that we'll do something like that again this year.
So, what demon did you sell your soul to make all those crazy stories come to life in 2020? I want to
Well,
know.
mine was about what was mine about? Mine was like a 4 page story, and it was about a bank heist, and the combination was 2020 to get
Oh,
into the
okay.
safe.
Nice.
Um, and then at the end, the guy says like, "Have fun this year. It's gonna be crazy." And what do you know? What do you
You're
know?
half right. We won't have
Yeah,
fun, but it will be
exactly.
crazy. Um,
Exactly.
that's awesome, man. Yeah, I really did enjoy getting into that community. Like I said, I met a lot of cool people in there, and it was definitely a help for me
Oh,
getting
awesome.
started and learning more about this kind of realm. Because I mean, I had never really gotten into comic books until probably 2014, 2015. My buddy Charlie, he got me into them, reading them, and I just sucked them up like a sponge. I just tore through all the standards and the classics, and I was like, I want to do this. I want to write one of these. You know.
Mm.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, there we go. Okay. Um, so that's how I got my start. How did you get your start? Like, how did you start out? Getting into comic books and writing and all that stuff.
Yeah. So I've always been into art. I've always been drawing. Not very well, but I've always been drawing. When I was like in fifth or sixth grade, my one of my friends was really big into Shonen Jump, like that big thick magazine. I don't know if you
Yep.
know about it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so he
Naruto,
brought one.
One Piece, Dragon Ball Z, all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, exactly. And so I remember in fifth grade, he showed me this, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in the world." And he's like, "Well, you can have it." And so I kept that one magazine for years, and I just kept reading it because I had no idea how to get any of these stories or whatnot, nor did I dare have my mom and dad buy this thing for me. But I just thought this is the coolest thing ever. So I made a comic book called The Quiet Spy. It's 500 pages
Holy shit!
that I did in elementary school. I still have it, man.
Wow.
It's down below there, all drawn on printer paper and just a pencil. But yeah, I still have that, and so I was like really into art. I loved making that book. And then it wasn't cool to do that, so then I stopped. I stopped, and I kind of like pushed that kind of like side of me away. Um, but I still like held on to it dearly. But I really got into music. I got into like a social scene. And then fast forward, I'm 19 years old. I'm trying to pirate some music. I see an ad that says that Joker got his face ripped off, and I'm like, oh, I like Batman. I've always loved Batman, by the way.
Yep.
So I'm like, oh, okay, like that's cool. And I start digging in. I'm like, oh, comic books, Batman, what's going on? And so I I researched it and I was like, okay, there's this thing called the New 52 and they just rebooted like the DC universe. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is a good time for me to get in. So I went to a comic book store. The guy sucked. He did not help me. So I had to figure it all out by myself. Bought my very first comic, which was
Oh, hold on. You dropped out.
Portals by Scott
Oh, there you
Snyder.
go.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, you dropped
You
out for a
good?
second.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I
you're good.
bought all right, I bought a Court of Owls by Scott Snyder, and then I bought
Great
The
one.
Killing Joke.
Yep.
Took those home, read them. I was like, this is it. This is the coolest thing in the world. I then went to South Africa for 2 years.
Oh, nice.
Still had that love of comics, and I told myself when I get back to the States, I'm gonna make my own comic. And yeah, got home 3 weeks. I I still have it. It's a total piece of crap. And then I started making other books with creators, and now 5 years later, I've got a YouTube show, and I'm making chefs.
Nice. Nice. That's an awesome journey, man. It's actually funny that the Joker ripping the face off from Death of the Family. That
Yeah.
was actually the first comic I ever collected. Charlie and I
Oh.
were in New Orleans at WizCon, and we were walking around, and we didn't. We It was the first year we went to WizCon. That was the first con I've ever been to, so I didn't really look at who was going to be there, who was going. We just kind of showed up and got a ticket and walked in, and we saw Greg Capullo was there,
Mhm.
and Charlie was like, "Oh shit, we got to find this comic book." And I was like, "Which one?" He's like, "Death of the Family issue 1. We got to get it so we can get him to sign it." And I was like, "What's so special?" And he's like, "This is like when Joker got his face ripped off and he's trying to steal it back." And I was like, "Oh shit, okay." We went to every single one of those kiosks and found two in that entire fucking
Wow.
Comic Con and got them signed, graded, and brought back. It was actually the first time I collected them. I don't have that one anymore. I sold it.
Shame.
I know it was hard times, and I needed the money, and I was like,
Yeah.
I gotta get rid of it. I was Charlie had that happen to him. His ex wound up getting him Spider-Man 300,
Oh
and
wow.
he had it, and I was like, you better fucking keep that one. And he's like, I know, because that his whole thing is Todd McFarlane. He started on
Uh-huh.
Spawn. He grew up as a little kid reading Spawn, and he was like, I know, I need to keep it. And then he hit hard times. He wound up having to sell that one. And I was
Aw,
like, you're going to
shame.
kick yourself in the ass for that. And he's like, I know, I know, I know, I know. But what did you do down in South Africa, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh yeah, so I served like a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter Day Saints.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, those guys that knock on your door.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, that was me, man.
Hey, I get it. I grew up Catholic. It's not the
Mm,
same, but
yeah.
I get it. So, what kind of when you write, what kind of inspirations do you pull from? Like how when you build a story, what inspirations do you pull from?
Yeah, it really depends. It really depends on, I guess, like, um, the mood I'm in. So my biggest inspiration. So my favorite genre is crime.
Hmm.
My favorite genre is crime, which is funny because I've only put out one crime comic. But like for demons, the inspiration of that was, what did you do with a guy? I wrote the story while I was in South Africa, and I was like, what do you do with a guy who doesn't believe in God, and yet his father believes in God, but they have a terrible relationship, and then all of a sudden all these supernatural things start happening, and how does he come to terms with his religious beliefs? Like, is this actually real? Is it not? Um, with my story with Entity, which was my sci-fi graphic novel I crowdfunded a couple months ago. The story was just about human self-destruction. Like, nothing is like is it gonna get to a point where like us humans, like, nothing's good enough and whatnot, and because of that it caused like the extinction of the human race. For chefs is a funny one because I was literally with my wife one day, and Endgame, Avengers Endgame was about to come out, and I was just like, I wonder if I'd make my own parody comic on the MCU. So, and it had to do with food, and so I made every Marvel character into like a food character, um, and then I like just copied. I was just like Captain Dairy, the first like chef, and um, I think Iron Man was like the tong because he was
The
metal.
tongue, nice.
And the Hulk was like a was gonna be pink, and he's called the Ham. And so I did that for every movie. Thought it was funny, chucked it, and then like I created like, instead of the Infinity Stones, it was called the Buffet Stones. And like the red stone was, well, like, remember the red stone, like it was, you had to
Yeah, yeah.
sacrifice someone.
It was the
So
Soul Stone, the orange one.
yeah, the soul stone. So ours was the guilt stone. So to get the stone, you had to give up a food that you really liked. And so I made all this parody stuff, and then I was like, well, that was fun, and I just chucked it on a Google Drive. Um, and then last year, I was like trying to figure out what my next moves were in comics, and I was like, well, I haven't done a superhero book. I tried so many different. I started writing so many different superhero books. Like, I have like three scripts that I always print my scripts out. I have like three scripts for superhero stories that are just there, and I just didn't like. I started drawing them, and I just wasn't having fun. And I found this Google Drive that I did, like, 3 years ago. And I'm like, oh wow, let me pull some. So I started pulling stuff out of that. And that's why we created chefs. So with chefs, it wasn't really anything that inspired me. It started off as a joke,
Right.
and I started pulling things that I liked from that parody stuff. Like, it was Captain Dairy. Well, now, um, the main character is called Dairy King, and whatnot. Instead of the tong, it's microwave.
Nice.
I still have the buffet stones. They all mean different things now. But yeah, so I think, yeah, it was mostly just fun. So I think, to answer your question, I'm terrible at
Oh
answering
no, you're
questions,
fine,
dude.
dude.
With all my other books, it was like this inspired me, and I felt like I had to tell the story.
Right.
For chefs, it's kind of been like I just want to tell a story that I have fun with,
Yep.
like that anything can happen. And that's been like the hardest part making this book, is that I normally like constrain myself, like, oh, this wouldn't happen in the world. And my buddy Brian Ball, when I talked to him, he's like, well, why not? Why can't it happen? Like, why can't you just do whatever you want? It's not real. And so I've been trying to like do that more with
Right.
this book, because I just want it to be a fun book. Like, ultimately, at the end of the day, I want people to have a silly goose time when they read my books. When you read Entity, it's not. I'm not gonna lie, it's not fun.
Right.
Like, I think it's a great story, but it's not gonna like make you laugh. It's not gonna make you go, oh my gosh, like that was really good. It's gonna make you go, oh, interesting. Hmm. Same with Demons. It's about about in hell fighting, like not fun topic, superheroes and food supervillains clashing, like
Right.
having a good time. So yeah, in terms of like how do I write, come up with a good idea for chefs right now, it's just I'm just having fun.
Hey, and some of the best stories just come from that. Just having fun
Yeah,
and flowing with it, man. You can't,
exactly.
being unpredictable is just as good as, having everything plotted out.
Hmm.
The question on everyone's mind is Gordon Ramsay style chef going to be popping up in this?
Yeah, he so I have so each volume of Chefs is 60 pages and there are 12 volumes. He will be in the 12th volume.
Yes.
He'll be in the 12th volume. He has a special role. He has a
Beautiful.
special role. Yeah.
Beautiful. So going through all this, most people don't, and it's just a question I like to ask just to gauge people's
Yeah.
feelings on this. But, have you had a mentor or anybody that's kind of like shown you the ropes or guided you along your way in the beginning, or did you kind of just start out going on your own and chugging through it?
That's a really good question. Um, yes and no. So a lot of it was a lot of it was myself,
Right.
you know. A lot of it was myself. I've got a friend named Brad Ashworth, and he lives like 10 minutes like that way. And we met at the comic book store, and he's been a great help with like my art. He's a
Right.
fantastic artist, and he's done he's done like off air live streams with me, where he'll be like, okay, let's practice this, let's practice that. You could do better here, and he'll critique it, and so that's really helped. He did that right before I started doing the artwork for Chefs. He's like, hey, I want this to be your best one. Let's go over some things, and so that really helped. And then also, I don't know if in terms of mentors, but I make sure to surround myself with a lot of good friends
Right.
in the community and see like what they're doing. I've got my friend Larry from Niobe Comics, from Rebel Comics, and he does a book called Niobe.
Hmm.
He's been doing this for like 6 years, and his last campaign finally broke 10K, and so we talk all the time, like every day. He's on my stream constantly, and we just seeing his success, and then we talk about what we do. I've got my friends Tim Lim and Mark Pellegrini, the guys who do Common America.
Hmm.
um their campaign did 50K in like 24 hours, and
Damn.
so yeah, it's a fantastic book. I have everything. I literally have everything that they've ever made.
Nice.
And so I went when I was I went out of town. I met up with Tim. He so happened to be in the state that I was in, and we had dinner, and so like I got to pick his brain. Brian Ball from Rags. I don't know if you've heard of Rags.
Mm.
I actually have their trade paperback right here.
Nice.
But like he was the guy who was like, why can't you do this in your book? Do whatever you want. And he actually called, like, I mean, he called me the other night super drunk and was like, hey, I have a really good idea for you. And I'm like, you sound really drunk. He goes, oh, I am. And he gave me this crazy idea, and it's opened so many doors to that. So yeah, I think if you don't have a mentor, like I wouldn't call Brad my mentor, but he's definitely someone who I can go to and be like, hey, can you help me with this? And he'll show me the ropes, and vice versa. But I think if you can't find a mentor, like surround yourself with people who are either doing what you want to do or doing it better.
Right.
And that's what I've tried to do, is constantly surround myself with the right people.
Right. And that's something that I kind of preach a lot is that, you don't necessarily have to have somebody to hold your hand through the whole thing. Even if you just have a group of three, four people that are there that can read your work or read or look at what you're doing and go, I really don't like this. Oh, I do like that. Why don't you tweak this that way? Or, think about it this way. It opens your mind as a creator, and it lets you look at things from a different perspective, and
Hmm.
it's good to have that stuff in your life because there are two sides of that coin. Having a mentor is great, but mentors tend to push their inspirations and ideas onto people, and you kind of lose your voice sometimes when it comes to that because they can suggest, hey, well, why don't you, well, look at what I did and see how I did it. and sometimes people can lose their voice that way if it's too pushy. And the other side is if you don't have somebody like that to help you, you could just not find any way of getting out of a rut. You could just be
Yeah.
stuck and not have any way out of it because you don't have any input on what other people did. And that's where I feel like a group collective is better than just one person.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And because your voice, you can still find your voice by listening to different people. It's the same concept of, you stuck in a small town your whole life and you move to a big city, your views change because you get so many people around you that bring different things to the table, and you learn the world in a different way than what you're used to,
Hmm.
you know? And
Yeah,
it's kind of the same concept
100%.
with writing for me.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, because if you, yeah, like I have had people where they've tried to be my mentor, and at the end of the day, I'm like, listen, I don't want to do it this way though.
Right.
I want to do it my own way. And and here's the thing: if you're gonna do that, you got to pay the consequences. There are times where, like, maybe I should have done what they did, and it would have probably worked out better. Um, but everyone, when in terms of like indie comics or comics in general, there's no one way. There's a ton of different ways to to make comics and get your comics out there.
Right. Right. Um, So, I know with chefs, it's just kind of a fun thing, but like your other comics, what kind of messages were you trying to get across? Like, did you have any kind of like, you know, I guess I don't want to say like Saturday morning special lessons, but
Oh yeah,
things that you wanted to portray through your writing.
yeah, yeah. Even with chefs, by the way, has that.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
still make sure that like the book is fun, but there is kind of like a central theme.
Right.
So like in chefs right now, the central theme is um learning how to um learning how to work with others and being okay with working in a group, rather than gosh, rather than just doing everything solo. Like it's okay to like unload your burdens on other people.
Right.
So that's the next message with chefs. With Entity, the last graphic novel I did, I was trying to explore the idea of human self-destruction. Like, are there things that we as humans do that are not good for our species? One of them being like constantly judging our imperfections, thinking that our weaknesses are actually problems when really, our weaknesses are strengths and they make us unique. And also, I was exploring the ability of agency, the ability to choose.
Hmm.
Like, what happens if what happens if in the human society you're not able to make your own choices and you're told exactly what to do? Does that make you happy? Does that make you not happy? So that was kind of my soapbox for Entity. And then with Demons, it was Demons was all about just fighting the darkness that's in you. So, they're fighting demons, physical demons, but most of it's fighting the personal demons that you have. I mean, the main character, Ace Carter, um, in the first, and we did it in we put all 14 issues in 3 volumes. In the first volume, it's about, okay, I hate my dad because he forced religion on me, and and he lied to me all these years, and he kept a secret. And I hate him. Um, and if we really dealt heavy on that hatred. The second volume, we dealt a lot with, um, okay, now that you've hated this person for so long, how do you deal with the fact that now they're dead and you weren't able to reconcile with them?
Right.
So how do you deal with the darkness that's inside of you within that? And then in the third, yeah, so and then in the third volume was about just was being able to forgive yourself and like forgive yourself of the things that you've done, and ultimately and to ultimately become the person that you were destined to be. So like, the character Ace at the very first like 3 pages of the entire series, he shoots an unarmed guy. And he shoots an unarmed guy, and he turns into this demonic figure.
Right.
And luckily, it was a demonic figure. But we later in later issues we talked. It was discussed that he just shot this unarmed victim. He was a police officer. He shot this guy
Hmm.
mostly just out of anger. this kid was just obviously out of anger. Lucky on him that the guy turned into this demonic beast.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, those are the themes that we explored in those books.
Yeah. And that's really really good. The you know with your first one, it's really good to bring out the coping with grief and unfinished business with a loved one, having that
Mhm.
anger and that hatred towards somebody who wronged you but is still a person who cared for you and loved you and you wanted to fix things, and now you don't have that opportunity, or you think you don't have that
Yeah.
opportunity. And I know a lot of people go through that. And it's good that you kind of brought that to light, and it could really help people in that sense. And yeah, that's kind of something I draw from as well when I work on Prometheus Effect. With the grief and everything, pulling, in the first 3 pages of mine is his whole family gets murdered basically, and he's got to
Oh, jeez.
he's got to cope with that, and on top of the mental taxing and stresses of being a firefighter, on top of it, it just sends him into this pit and spiral of despair. And it's about, you got to claw your way back from that kind of stuff, and that you can't let it eat you alive because it will destroy you if you let
Oh
it,
yeah.
you know. And
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. I think writers, as writers, I think it is our job to create these characters and put them through the ringer,
Right.
like and not necessarily because we enjoy it, or sometimes I do, but like to put them through the ringer so that so that at the end of the day we can show that they can overcome it.
Right.
One thing that I've like hated in comics lately, is that not only are characters being thrown in the ringer, they're not getting out of it and they're not winning.
Right.
And they're not. And I know in real life, that doesn't always happen. You don't always win, but when you are telling a story, you need the hero to win. You need to inspire your reader to, if you don't want, if gosh, if I'm like on the verge of suicide and I read Batman, he's going through the same thing, and at the end he's like, "Yeah, I just want to kill myself." I'm like, "Crap, Batman can't do. If
Right.
Batman can't do it, gosh, I can't do it."
Right.
Um, so it is important for writers to put their characters through the ringer, but to show that they can overcome anything.
Right.
And if a writer doesn't do that, to me personally, I think the writer failed
Yeah.
on their story.
And in some ways, it's almost like a catharsis for the writer. And, at least for me, it's like a therapy for me, because I'm like, I am putting this dude through hell. I am just really screwing with this dude right now. How am I going to get him out of this situation? How am I going to make him feel better? How am I going to get him out of this mental pit? And it kind of, helps with, if you do suffer from depression and anxiety and things like that, it really helps show different ways that the mental capacity of a human can overcome these things. And for myself, that's just kind of a catharsis for me, because, yeah, it's almost sadistic what we do to our characters sometimes,
Yeah,
you know.
but we need to.
Yeah,
They need to go through it
it happens. It's real life. We all go through lows. We all hit rock bottom. But the important part is what you do to pull yourself up from that rock bottom, and that's definitely something that is needed to be put on the paper and to get out to people so they know how to fix that kind of stuff. Um,
for sure.
so, who are a few of your favorite writers? Again, they don't have to be, comic book writers or authors. They could be any kind of writer, music, anything like that.
Yeah, favorite kind of writers. Yeah, I'm going. You've actually caught me in a weird transformation,
Yeah.
where I am abandoning a lot of the old creators that I looked up to, and I'm kind of right now in a search for some new ones. Um, mostly out of betrayal. So I've got like someone like Scott Snyder who got me into comics.
Right.
I love Scott Snyder, and yeah, I think I haven't, and everything that he's done lately, I've thought it was trash. Um, and that's just me personally.
Right.
But like I bought everything that he ever did. Like if Scott Snyder's name was on it, I bought it. And now lately it's like, gosh, Scott Snyder's name's on it. I don't want to buy it. Um, let's see. Gosh, it's really hard for me to think of like a writer who's like consistently good. I want to say like Grant Morrison. I really enjoyed Grant Morrison, but then like there's some books where I'm like, gosh, that absolutely was garbage, and then I stopped reading them. Right now I'm right. Let's see. Dragon Ball Z. Okay, so right now I've been really really like Akira Toriyama.
Yes.
He's the
Yep.
creator of Dragon. So I've been really enjoying that, reading that. So I'm right now getting really into manga. I used to be into manga, stopped, went to comics. Comics have sustained me for the last 5 years. Realize now at this point, I'm like, gosh, like if I'm so sick of Batman not being able to capture Joker.
Right.
I'm so sick of it. I literally threw like one of the latest issues like across my room. I was so angry. I was
I'm
like, gosh, I'm so sick of
I'm so
you in that.
disillusioned with DC right now. It's unreal. And I haven't read a lot of DC since they started rebooting every damn year. It's like, stick with something, please. Please.
Yeah.
I understand that people in the 90s and the early 2000s made mistakes and you need to retcon them, but you don't have to retcon them every year. Just let be what happened and move forward. And then it's Marvel's kind of switching to that same course. They're kind of taking that same route with their comic books as they start retconning stuff and changing these comic books. And it's like, you don't need to do that. You don't need to change things. Just leave them the way they are and build new stories around that. You
Oh
know?
yeah, for sure. And they're not coming up with anything original. I'm just trying
No.
to listen. I hear my kid waking up.
Oh no, you're
And
fine.
I don't know if my wife is still in the house. I think she might have got out. She went out. But yeah, like I literally just did a video this week. Yeah, it was this week. What's today? I did it last week. Did I do it this week? What's today? Friday? Okay, I did it this week. I posted it this week, and it was like I was like, "Hey guys, I'm leaving mainstream comics. I'm not reading
Yep.
it. This is how I think it fixed mainstream comics." And a lot of it was just taken from manga. But like I'm sick of Batman dying and then coming back to life. Like to me, I'm like, dude, just let the guy die,
Yeah.
and let someone else take over, and then let that character grow into the cowl, and then have him die, and then have a new person. And you can always have Batman, but like you can have someone new be Batman,
Right.
and it'd be cool. It'll be cool to see a new Batman, a younger Batman, an inexperienced Batman. Like we can see, for Batman, he's been around for 85 years. He's the greatest detective. He's the greatest martial artist, and yet he can't beat up this homeless clown.
Yeah, right. Right.
Um, like to me, I'm just like, gosh, this is like if this was a new Batman, yeah, I'd be like, yeah, absolutely, you got tricked.
Right.
Um, but at this point, I'm like, dude, if you can't do anything, like get out.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and one
gosh,
of
other
the
writers,
the greatest TV shows from the late 90s, early 2000s was Batman Beyond. It was so cool seeing
yeah,
a young kid who just kind of got thrusted into this world of, hey, you're Batman now, have fun. And watching him go through
him
those
trying to figure it
pitfalls.
out.
Right, right. And, you know, it it's the same thing with just changing characters just for the sake of changing them, not giving any
Yeah,
purpose. There's no need.
yeah. Gosh, I'm trying to figure out writers. I haven't read One Piece,
Mm-hmm.
but I've read a lot of like Oda, Oda Sensei. I've read a lot of like what he does as a writer and creator to create the book. It's the number one highest revenue created IP
Oh
in the
wow,
world is One Piece.
wow,
It's not Batman, it's not Superman, it's One Piece.
wow.
Sit on that, everyone
Never would have
who
thought of
who's
that.
like, yeah, it's One Piece. One Piece has generated the most revenue for any IP in the world. Um, in fact, if you were to look at, in fact, if by the time he's done with the series, One Piece will have sold more copies than Batman and Superman combined,
Wow,
with all their titles and whatnot.
wow.
So, so I've been learning about like how he has structured his stories, how he'll tease something like 3 years out,
Hmm.
and then he'll like wrap it up 3 years later. But like it all makes sense and it all pays off. So I've been learning a lot about that. Gosh,
I'm
writers.
actually
I really am.
I've been getting into getting into because I kind of stopped reading it and I needed to refresh myself. But Jeff Lemire and Gideon Falls. Uh,
I hear that's good.
it is
I heard
very
that's
good.
good, and there's a conclusion, so I kind of like that. Oh, okay, I got one. I really like anything that Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips put out.
Hmm.
They did the Criminal series, the Fade Out, Killer Be Killed. Um, anything that they put out, it like is solid. I like Ed Brubaker as a writer. He does it's they do very crime noir. Sean Phillips is one of my main art styles. So I've got two kind of art styles when I draw. I've got I've got three. I've got like my cartooning style. I've got an anime style. I've got like a Western anime style,
Hmm.
and then I have like a more indie mainstream realism style. Um, and so that's what Sean Phillips does. It's a lot. It's a very realistic drawings, and yeah, I dig anything that they put out.
Right. Yeah, those are some good options. So kind of to bring it back to creative flow and writing. Um,
Yeah,
when you script your comic books, like how do you get that flow from outline to rough draft to finished script? Like what's your scripting style?
yeah. You're gonna lose your mind when I tell you. Um, so normally what I do is so normally I do I have like pretty rigid steps I do every time. So I first thing I do is I call it the summary,
Hmm.
and it's basically 1 to 2 pages, and it's everything that's gonna happen in the book. And I just keep writing, and then this is going to happen, and then they see this, but this is what they go through, and blah blah blah. So it's like it's just flat out. This is what the story is, from beginning to end. After that, I then break that up into what I think would be like good, either it's going to be issues or chapters or whatnot.
Right.
So I break it up. And then once I do that, I kind of go, okay, so this is issue one. After that, I'll then do what I call I'll do the what's it called? The character Bible,
Right.
and that's where I'll have the characters and I'll write everything about them, just so you know this, so you're just so like you're consistent. Oh, they don't like pizza, like there you go. And then after that, I just go into the scripting phase. Page one, panel one. Now, and then after that, I do the art. Now, for this time around, though, for chefs, I was like, screw that. I'm not doing any of this. So,
I mean, it's all in your
what I
head at this
did,
point. It doesn't even really matter because you're not having to communicate to an outside source. It's the person who wrote it,
exactly,
and it's like, well, I know what I want. I know what the outline is. I know where I want it to go. Who needs to see any of
exactly,
that? I can just do it off my head, and I get that.
exactly. So I still did the summary where, like I said, this is what needs to happen in this volume. And then, instead of me going page one, panel one, I was like, screw it. So I made like a document, and it has 60 pages,
Hmm.
and then I just thumbnailed the whole thing, and I just let it flow. I was like,
Nice.
okay, and then this is gonna happen, and then this is gonna happen, and then this happens, and I did that, and then after that, I then I have my like doc, my Google Doc right there on that screen, and then right next to it, I have like that scribbles that I did, and then I just do the dialogue.
Right.
I just do the dialogue. Um, Now that it was really awesome doing that for the first 2 acts of my book. So every book is 60 pages, broken up into 3 acts of 20 pages. For this third act, like had I better planned it, which was my fault because I skipped so many
Right.
steps. I had to rewrite it like 5 times, um, because it just did not it just did not work with how I wanted it, and so I just kept redrawing. I try to fit in I go, okay, do I want like a 10-page fight, or do I need to sacrifice like 5 of those pages so I can have this other element in? And had I better planned it, I could have avoided that. I also use gosh, who's this? Dan something's like 8-step storytelling thing.
Hmm.
It's a circle, and it basically it maps out the entire story of like where you should do it, and it's constantly like creating conflict, getting rid of conflict, setting up more conflict, resolving that conflict, but then doing overall conflict, and by the end of this loop, your character should have started believing in one thing, and by the end they should become something else.
Right.
And so I think that that I'm hearing about is at the beginning of I set the tone of what my characters are, or at least the world, and I say this is how everything is, and then hopefully by the end of the story, the reader goes, okay, things are different now. And that's ultimately my goal with storytelling is by the end of my story, the reader should be like, oh, things are different, whether the characters have changed for better or good,
Right.
or we've raised the stakes for the next story. But I think good storytelling needs to have a change. Like you need to see a change, and at the end, you go, "Oh, things aren't going to be the same anymore."
Right. Right. Nothing infuriates me more as a writer than reading a story and it's just like, well, that got absolutely nowhere. You've just you've just ran me back to where we started. What was the point? You know,
Yeah,
you wasted 3 hours of my time, and now I'm upset. You know,
yeah.
and you've got to have some kind of. You cannot have static characters.
Push the plot. Come on.
Yeah, yeah, drive it. This
Yeah,
bitch can only go 55 miles an hour. It's gonna explode. You better drive it.
yeah, and like if writers do that, like they need to do it one of two. Like if they're gonna have a moment where the plot isn't moved forward, they better be pushing some character moments
Right.
where we learn more about the character, where we go, oh, like in Man of Steel, like the first like 40, like the first like 45 minutes, like there's really no plot driven anything. It's all character development. We're learning about Clark and who he is and whatnot, and then only after that is there a real plot that like there's a narrative starts happening. But yeah, there's so many stories that I read, and I'm just like, but why was that there?
Right.
like 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 it did nothing for, like, if you were to take that out, would have been better.
And, you know, I'm currently, and people are gonna hate me for this, but I'm just starting out watching Supernatural right now, and
Great show.
oh, it
J-
is. It's phenomenal. Um,
I stopped at season 5. Apparently that's where you're supposed to stop.
oh, I didn't know that. My wife's already on season 12, way ahead of me. I
Oh,
just
there you go.
started. I'm on
That
season 2.
the original creator, he was like, okay, we're done. He said that the story ends at season 5, and CW, they're like, well, we own the show, so you're fired.
Guess what? We got 10 more years to go, buddy.
Exactly.
Um, I have found watching that from a writer's perspective, that is one of the shows that can take filler and make it about character development. And I know that a lot of shows fall flat in that aspect. These, sequential shows with overarching narratives that try and put stuff in the middle of it to keep it stretched out, is they lose that character development. And don't get me wrong, I love Naruto. I have watched a lot of it, and it's one of my favorite animes of all time. But Jesus Christ, there are points in there where it's just like, okay, what's the point of this episode? What's the point
Hmm.
of this? There's
Well,
no need for it.
have you read it?
I have not read it. I want to, but I have not read it.
So if you ever read a manga that's been turned into an anime, you'll realize that none of those filler episodes are in there. And the reason why is because those filler episodes are only there because the manga hasn't been made yet. So they're
Oh,
like, crap, he's only on like chapter 10, and we need like and he's not going to be finished with chapter 11 until like next month. So we need to come up with 2 filler episodes to fill that space. And well, here's the thing with filler episodes. You can't kill any characters.
yep,
You can't change anything,
yep,
because if you change anything, you're going to change what the manga's doing, or the comic.
right.
So filler episodes are one of the biggest problems with anime because they can't do anything. They can't push the plot forward because the guy who's creating it's doing that stuff. They can't kill anyone because he doesn't want you to kill anyone. The characters can't grow because he's telling you, well, no, they grow sometime later. So that's why in anime you'll see that there's a ton of filler episodes, and that's why if you read them, there's none of that filler. It's just
Yeah.
plot, 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 plot.
And I think after Game of Thrones, I understand why they do that. I understand that 100% because you know what? I'll take filler over whatever the hell season 8 was any day.
Yeah. What what a
Oh,
catastrophe.
that was horrible. It was horrible. I
What a
was
catastrophe.
working as a fireman in New Orleans when that season 8 came out. And I remember we were watching it at the firehouse every weekend. And the further it got along, we'd sit in the day room and I was in a double house, so there was 6 guys in there. Every week, as everything got further and further along, you slowly start seeing more and more guys not in the room and walking off and leaving it. And by the end, it was just me and my captain watching it. Like, this is just horrible.
You guys are like, man, we'll set our own fire and jump in there.
Yeah, yeah. Like I'd rather do that than this. But
That's hilarious.
but yeah, Supernatural is one of those shows that it takes filler to stretch out a season because I know they got to have 20 episodes a season, whatever. But the filler still leaves you with character development. They still bring back pieces of that overarching narrative. Like I'm through season 2 right now. I'm only about halfway through season 2, but they keep bringing back the fact of, you know, I don't want to spoil it, but it's been so long that
Dude, so
honestly,
long. Screw you if you
yeah,
haven't watched it. So
right,
just say it.
yeah. That the fact that their dad's dead just keeps popping back up, even through these small little filler episodes.
Oh yeah. Like as a writer, like so for me, for example, um, I for chefs, we've created the with the buffet stones. What
Right,
they are, who knows? And so what we've done is like, okay, I'm gonna grab these are the trading cards I do for all my campaigns.
nice,
So we're just gonna say this like this makes up the lore of the buffet stones.
right,
Um, and so in book one, okay, so in book one, we're gonna tease you with some information. Book three will tease you with some more, and then book six, seven, and then 10. And by book 10, you're like, okay, I know what all of these things are. But as you tease them, the reader's able to still like if you give the if you give the reader everything
yeah,
too quick, they're gonna be like, oh, like it's almost overload.
right,
Um, Whereas if you tease them a little bit, they go, "Oh, that's a really interesting premise," and then all of a sudden it comes up later. They go, "Oh, like they know there's still something more," and if anything, by letting them piece it together, in a way, it's you showing that you respect the reader by not having to by not telling them
spoon
everything.
feeding it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. One I don't know, have you seen No Country for Old Men?
Oh yeah, one of my favorite movies.
So and when he kills some guy, that guy he kills one of the people, and before he kills him, he takes his shoes off,
Yep,
and then he shoots him, and so and so then at the end when he finally sees that girl, and you don't she just like kind of looks in fear, and then it cuts to him walking out of the house, and you don't know what her fate is, but then you see him to put his shoes back on.
yep,
And so if you're in the audience, you go, "Oh, she's dead," because you
right,
put two and two together. They didn't have to spoon feed you on that, and that's a way of respecting your audience
right.
and letting them do the work.
A show that does this great, and for my opinion, the greatest single season of television of all time was True Detective season 1. Um, that is the greatest single season
Hands
of
down.
television I have ever seen. And
I'm rewatching it right now.
I gotta get my wife to watch it. She's never seen it, and I want her to watch it so bad. But
And they have to sit down. I try getting my wife to watch it as well. And like, if like she'll want to look at her phone, and I'm like, you have to pay attention.
oh, I'm going through that with WandaVision right now. We'll watch it, and I'm like, "What are you doing? There's stuff happening on screen. Put your phone down." You know.
Yeah.
And
No, True
it's
Detective season one. Oh my gosh.
oh, the nuggets they drop in that you don't realize until later on in like episode 6 or 8 or whatever, and they're like, oh, that was always there. He was
Hmm.
always there. He was always in these spots, and you just don't realize it. And it's the writers are giving you the information. They're giving you the symbols to look for. You just gotta be wary about what's going on, and you'll be able to piece it together. But they do it so well that you can't find it. You know,
It's a shame they couldn't do that with season two and three.
I liked 3. 2 was rough, but I feel like a lot of that was they caught lightning in a bottle with season 1, and it was
Oh
almost
yeah.
impossible to top it. There would have
Oh yeah.
been no way.
See, like I season two. Um, like you like season one was like you could really sit down and analyze and think that one through. With season two, I was like, this is just like a really long like
Yeah,
gangster or like gangster like crime noir
right.
take. And then I didn't even finish season three. I was like, this is I don't like this.
Season 3 was okay. It got a little convoluted, and it was just like they were trying to recapture what they had in season 1, but Nick
Yeah,
Pizzolatto just couldn't grab onto it. And a
yeah.
lot of that, my buddy and I talk about this all the time. I think a lot of that with season 1 was that Cary Fukunaga had so much input on those episodes that he reined back a lot of Pizzolatto's bad faults in writing, because he
Mm,
has some pretty glaring ones with just kind of over the top, stereotype writing sometimes. And you can see that in season 2 and in season
yeah.
3. And I think Carrie was there kind of like, nah, man, let's pull it back this way. Why don't we direct it towards this area instead? Because, what Carrie Fukunaga has put out is great. Beasts of No Nation was a phenomenal movie. Everything that he's put out has always been really good. And I think a lot of that it's not to discredit Pizzolatto, but there are some discrepancies with the writing that he did, pulling from Thomas Ligotti. There's
Hmm.
some.
Well, you look at like the first Wonder Woman, which was great. I
Oh,
really liked the first Wonder Woman. Um, and then you see the second one. So the first one, you had Zack Snyder on set.
mhm.
You had Patty Jenkins saying, "I want to do this," and Zack just going, "Well, let's do this." And kind of like keeping her
Right.
on track and keeping her focused on the journey. And then we see Wonder Woman 1984, where she's 100% in charge, and you can see
Just
there's no focus
no.
in the storytelling. It's completely convoluted. It's a horrible
I
film,
can touch you through
horrible film.
television waves.
It was a horrible film. So, yeah, yeah. So, and kind of goes like kind of full circle back to what you said. Like, should you have a mentor? That's one of those instances where it is
Yeah.
good to have someone there to kind of like steer you in a good direction. And obviously, unlike it's hard sometimes, like you, because I think all creators, I think all of us, we have
Yep.
egos. I don't want to admit that like it's when Brad says, "Hey Tyler, your art's not looking good." Oh, I get so mad.
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
so mad. I'm like, dude, don't talk to me like that. And there are times where like it's warranted, and there's some times where it's like, dude, like don't talk to me like that. It's unwarranted. But the times where it is warranted and I do take a step back, I improve. And so if you look at Detective season one, you can tell, there was a lot of restraint
Yep.
on he wanted to do this, and you could tell like where it could have
Right.
gone and how he was directed to make it better. And then you can see, okay, now I've got free reign in season two, and there's so much like the action was great. I loved the action, but there was a lot of times where I was like, okay, but why is this
Right. And the
happening?
dialogue was just very ham. It
Terrible.
was very ham fisted. It was very ham
Yeah,
fisted. And like,
I didn't like any of the characters that
no.
either. I was like, gosh, you guys are all horrible
Right.
people. And I guess that was like season one. Like Marty wasn't a good guy
But
either,
you still
but at
rooted
least
for him. You still wanted him
but
to
you still
win.
rooted for him. Like he was still like ultimately he still was a family man, a terrible one, but he was still a family man. And like Cole, if anything, like my wife hates Cole because a lot of his stuff that he would say, she'd be like, "Oh, that's stuff that you say," and then she'd be like, "You're depressing." And I'm like, leave me alone. But yeah, like, but with gosh, with season two, I mean, you had like Rachel McAdams' character, and she was just angry all the
Yep.
time, and she's just like, "Give me anal sex." You have like, gosh, who is the guy with like the mustache and long hair?
Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell. Like he kind of had a cool arc. You know, he loved his son, and
But it was such a
like he was,
scumbag, though.
but he was such a scumbag. I think he might have been the only good character. Maybe he had Vince Vaughn. What was hard? Yeah, yeah. What was hard with season two is you had an even bigger kind of all star cast and he couldn't
Right.
like
Rein him in.
keep up,
Rein him in. And
rein him in. Yeah.
I actually enjoyed Vince Vaughn, and I thought he showed a lot of heart and want to be a good actor in this show, but
Yes.
the dialogue just didn't let him get there. And a good
It's one of those things where he's like, I can be a serious actor and I'm gonna be a serious actor, and he just wasn't given the script.
and a
But he still did a good
and a
job.
good example of him with the right script was Brawl in Cell Block 99. He took
He was
that and
scary.
just ran with it because you think Vince Vaughn, you think Wedding Crashers and the breakup and stuff like that. You don't realize this guy's like a 6'7" huge dude, and he could
Yeah.
do some damage if he wanted to. And them using his size to their advantage like that was great. Was great.
Yeah.
Um, so to kind of rein things back in after that little tangent
Yeah.
we went on.
Oh, that was good. I enjoyed
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So working with yourself has got to be
Yeah.
rough. What kind of pitfalls have you gone through? Not only just working with yourself, but just in your writing and art and stuff like that in general.
I can't blame it on anyone else.
Yeah,
Like if I send a script to someone and I don't and my art's late, I go, "Hey, dude, where's my art?" And it's on someone else. Well, I look at myself and I'm like, "Dude, where's the art?" And I get like, I don't know. Like I decided like so like we moved into this house. My wife was nice enough to give me this room until we have another child, and then I get kicked out. And where I go, I have no idea. Probably the basement, um, which is fine. Um, but so this is kind of like my man cave. Like I can draw right here. I make videos right here. I've got a couch like right there to read, and I've got like a TV right here to play video games. I got like my Xbox 360, my PlayStation 4, my PlayStation 2. I have a silly goose time in here, man. I have a freaking silly goose time in here. And I don't want to do anything. Like I don't want to draw.
right.
It's work. It's writing
Yep.
work. Um so it's been really really difficult. So my like I just tell my wife like I've got I don't have it up. But my wife takes away my controllers.
Yeah, that's what I do too.
Like yeah. I tell her I'm like, "Hey, like you got to take away my controllers." And I normally I have like a to-do list. It's over there and I don't want to get up. But yeah, it's like very specific. Like I have to get this stuff done every week. I make it every Sunday. And then if I want those controllers, I have to turn it in basically like a
Yeah.
child.
No. Yeah.
Um, and this week I don't get them. Um, and next week I probably won't get them either. So it's if anything, it's been a lot of self-discipline. Um, I'm tired all the
Yeah.
time. It's yeah, but it's definitely hard. And then um you kind of see that when everything is all on you, you kind of see like your limitations. Um, Drawing a book in this style I've never done before. And so something that might take me like an hour is now taking me like 3 hours, and whatnot. Also because it's like all on me, um, I've got like there's like no excuse. Like when people didn't come back for Demons Volume 3, they said it was because like some of them were like, "Oh, I don't like the writing, but I love the art." Or they'd go, "Oh, I liked your writing, but I didn't like the art." And so I could be like, "Oh, like they didn't like Travis's art, or they didn't like my writing, but they liked the art." So 50% was either on me or against me. With Entity, same thing. "Oh, I really liked your story, but I didn't like the art," or vice versa.
Right.
Now at this point, if someone doesn't like the book, it's because they
Yeah.
just hate
Right.
me.
Right.
Like they don't like my writing, they don't like my art. And so I'm like I'm having a ton of anxiety launching this book on February 15th because I get anxiety for every time I
Oh
do a
yeah.
crowdfunder. I freaking hate it. I think I'm like, there's got it. I think after Chefs, I don't know if I'm gonna do another. I think after I'm done with the series, I don't know if I'm gonna do another crowdfunder. I think I'm gonna try to find a way to do, I don't know, comics a different way. But right now, crowdfunding is
Oh
huge.
yeah, yeah.
So that's the way to do it. But yeah, it's I feel the pressure, man. I
It's
feel the
it's
pressure.
it's soul crushing. That was one of the reasons why I kind of backed off of the publishing house I was with, was just the pace at what I where I needed to move. I have bad anxiety to begin with, and having, okay, well, you've got 4 months to finish your comic book, get 1,000 followers, do a podcast every week, go on people's shows, promote your stuff, and talk with us every day about what we need to do. I was like, I can't do all that. I can't. It's just not gonna happen. And I was like, I gotta take the year to build followers, because I'm not gonna be comfortable doing this until I have a decent set of followers
Hmm.
behind me, because 500 people does not make a successful Kickstarter. you know, and that's,
Well, I mean, if you have 500 people backing your book, though,
yeah, but you got
that's not bad, though.
the realistic sense of it, though, is that, yeah, you may have 500 followers, but how many people are actually looking at what you're doing and gonna go back it, kind of thing.
Oh
And
yeah, for
that's
sure.
where my fear is. And uh, it's rough getting over that hump of, okay, well, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna do this? How am I gonna get all these people to follow me and to listen to what I have to say and be interested in my book? And it's to the point to where I get anxiety when I'm writing, because I'm like, what if people don't like this? What if people don't
The
like where this is going? What if people don't like that I'm doing this right now? You
one
know?
I did a show last night, and I was like, one thing I think, I'm getting really big into manga,
Right.
and I'm just like, I'm like, okay, these guys sell millions of copies. Comics barely can sell like maybe 100,000, and we're clearly as a community doing something wrong. Even like mainstream people, like like DC and Marvel, if they can't sell 100,000 of one copy, and yet manga can sell like 14 million copies a year, like it's a layup.
Right.
We must be doing something wrong. One thing that manga does, like with Naruto, like any of these big properties, the what they do is the creators have to just write a 20-page story, and they make the 20-page story, and then they pitch it. And then if people like that 20-page story, then they go, okay, it's greenlit. Um, and that's how you know if you should like waste if you're going to waste your time or not waste your time. So one thing that's giving me anxiety is the fact that I have like Chef's Volume 1 isn't like this one and done story.
Right.
There's going to be a sequel. um so like if no one fucking likes it, I'm like, what do I do? Do I just say like, oh yeah, it's done, like I'm not doing another one, it's failed? Or do I, just keep doing it
Right.
and just wasting my time? Like I said, it's I have 12 books planned.
Dude.
Do I like that's a lot. That's a lot of time.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, but like I could do book one and then never finish it and never do another one. And it would still tell a complete story, but like it does leave you hanging on some stuff. Um so that's just so I think what we should do as like creators is we should do the manga thing, create a 20-page story as a like or even a 10-page sample story,
Right.
and let the world know, hey, read this. Like give it out for free. Do you guys like this? Do you want more? If you don't, I'll scrap it. If you do want more, I'll make more. And I think we've kind of come out of touch as creators with the audience.
Yeah.
We're not making stuff that they want anymore. So that's something that I didn't do. I goofed with
Hmm.
chefs, and I'm going to pay probably for the next 4 years. But I hope that I learned from it. I'm really just hoping that I've been playing around with this. I play around with it every time I draw. It's a poker chip, and I'm just like basically gambling. Like,
Yeah.
I hope this works.
Yeah.
Like, please.
Well, and I say this a lot too. If your passion is there, people will realize it, and people like passion, and they can feel it behind what you do. And sometimes that's enough, sometimes it's not enough, but as long as you're passionate, you've always got a shot somewhere.
For
And
sure.
that's one of my fears too, is I've got this, I want to do a monthly issue of my comic book, and I've got 3 volumes of story, not written out, but synopsis of each issue going through. And I've got like 12 issues. I've got the whole first volume of where I want it to go done. Like I know
Hmm.
exactly where I want this to go. I know how it's going to end, and I know how it's going to get there, and all the back plots and stuff like that. And my fear is that I've done all this work and I've got all this in. People just aren't going to like it.
Dude, I'll one up you. After Chefs, I want to do a weekly.
Whew.
A
Whoa.
weekly. Like 10 to 12 chapters, 10 sorry, blah, 10 to 12 pages.
Oh.
And I'll come out with that weekly. And I mean that's a massive sacrifice and I don't think I'll ever do it.
Yeah.
I was talking with a friend, they're like, don't do it. But like, yeah, I get what you're wanting, dude. A monthly, like that's huge.
Yeah.
And the worst part about us as creators, especially writers, is that we have like these Google Drives. Like we have our Google
Oh my
Drive is filled with
god.
just stories, ideas. And you just like I guess like after Entity, the big thing was what do I do next? And it's hard because you love all these stories.
Right.
And now you got to figure out which one do you go into, and you just hope that one the audience likes the one that you picked. And it's just painful.
Yeah.
Being a creator is painful. You know, I do a podcast called The Broken Creator.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Patreon exclusive on my patreon.com/Drawan Talk. It's just $1 a month. And I just like on my YouTube, I try to be like, hey guys, this is what's up, bruh. And on that podcast, I'm like, yeah, things suck. Like things freaking suck. And that's where like I try to be pretty real on my YouTube, but like that's where I get like extremely real is on that podcast
Right.
on my Patreon where I'm just like, guys, like I freaking want to I'm this close to giving up.
Yeah.
Like if the following happens, I'm giving up. And just I think just to show that, being a writer and a creator is
It
hard.
is.
I got a question for you
Yeah.
if you don't
No, go
mind.
ahead, man.
Um, oh, there's my poker chip. So you like comics. You want to write comics. How come you don't write maybe because you're a writer exclusively? Why don't you write like a novel?
So it's almost
Because there's money in that for you.
yeah, yeah, that could be an option for me. But the way my brain works is different. I tried when I think of things, I don't really think of them in like text format or anything like that. My head kind of works. It's almost like it sounds weird, but it's almost like I have my own movie projector in my head, and I
Oh yeah,
can
no, no, no.
I can
Absolutely.
see these scenes playing out in my head, and when I write, I want to be able to portray that to people as best as I can,
Yeah.
and it's easier for me to say, okay, well, this is visually what I want it to look like, as opposed to describing in
Mhm.
text like, oh, this is that, this is this, and I want to be able for people to be like, I I work a lot. It's almost kind of like synesthesia in a way, and I want people to tangibly see the colors that I want. I want people to
Yeah.
tangibly feel what I'm putting out. And there's certain emotions and certain pain and feeling that you can't really get out through a novel in
Oh yeah.
my head at least. And it's kind of it's either for me it's either doing comics or a graphic novel or just turning this whole thing into a pilot and a screenplay and sending it off somewhere to see if somebody will
Yeah.
pick it up as a TV show or a
I've
movie.
like I work in the publishing world and I see these people make millions of dollars. Millions, dude. Hundreds of thousands to millions in writing novels. And so I'm like, gosh, like man, screw comics. Like screw this. I'm gonna
Yeah.
do what they're doing. So I sit down, I start typing, and I'm like, and I'm like, okay, they're in a building. The marble is white, and I'm like, oh, that's bullshit. Let me just
Yeah.
draw this.
Yeah.
Um, it's so stupid. Muttman, Muttman, he calls comics the pendulum. I'm just gonna use my own word. The ultimate
Pen.
creative medium. It's the only medium where you have an unlimited budget. Like
Yeah.
I don't like with any movie they go, oh, it was like 100 billion. It was like $100 million to get the visual effects guys, and I'm like, well, I just drew that in like a day.
Yeah.
and I had my like I can do whatever I want in a comic. I want robots? Do I want Earth just being destroyed? Boom, I drew it. It's there. So yeah, comics is the ultimate, and I think that's the reason why I'm still doing them
Yeah.
is because I love storytelling, and it is the ultimate, in my opinion, medium to tell a story. Without maybe without a budget. I mean, TV is great too.
Yeah, it is. It
Um,
is.
I- but there's something magical about
Right.
comics.
Right. And so my writing style and the things that I pull from a lot of H.P. Lovecraft. I pull from a lot of True Detective, neo noir kind of stuff, but also this, supernatural underbelly of things and alternate dimensions and realities. And what I loved about Lovecraft is he could describe a color without you ever knowing what that color is. And there's a certain way that you can do that through even just comic books that you can't really do through another medium, and
Yeah.
it's almost a living way of telling a story without, again, yeah, you're right. It's a living way of telling a story without it being a movie or a TV show.
Oh
It's
yeah. I mean,
you've
yeah.
got free reign. And
Hmm.
I have a hard time, like obviously I've read Lovecraft. I've read almost all of his books, and I'm into the cosmic horror and things like that. But when I craft a monster or an entity that's an antagonist or a villain in the story, I don't want people to see it. I want people to make it up in their head of what it is.
Mm.
I want people to think, "Oh, what is this? What is this?" And using just shadows and shapes and swirls and things like that, it's easier for me to do it that way than it is to go, okay, well, it's just this thing, you know.
Hmm.
You
The
got
fear of it, the unknown of it, is what makes it
right,
appealing.
right, and one of my favorite movies that kind of really hits on that that isn't a Lovecraft kind of thing was Mothman Prophecies with Richard Gere. They never show the Mothman. You never see it, but you see it from its perspective. And you see what the victims of it are looking at and seeing in the terror in their eyes. And you
Oh, I've never
never.
seen this
Oh,
movie.
it's so good. It's so
I
good.
don't know if I want to now.
Let me rephrase it. The first half of the movie's good. The second half just goes off the rails. But it's. I always. Another thing that I say a lot is there is nothing that a writer can come up with to strike fear into a person than what the reader can come up with in their mind.
Oh yeah, I mean, let's go back to because we both love True Detective. Let's go back to that scene where Cole shows Marty that VHS
You don't know what's on
of
there.
you don't know what's on there. All you see is Marty's face, and he's horrified, he's freaked out, he's disgusted, and then he like turns it off.
Yep.
And I don't know what was on there, and the thoughts that I think of are just absolutely terrible and
Yep.
dark, and yeah, like I the reader, the audience probably came up with more terrible outcomes than the writers did because the writer gave the
The
audience the
option. Yep.
opportunity, the option to do that. I just remember, I mean, I actually watched that scene a couple days ago on YouTube. Um, I don't know why.
No.
Um, and I just because like you see like little glimpses of what is on that VHS to just enough to get you like the hair on your arm to go up just a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, and then just seeing Marty's face and you just go, this is not good.
Right.
And that's where and that by the way is like kind of with the whole story like that at that moment Marty was one way and now he's a completely different
Right.
person because of that like he immediately
Yep.
changes. Um,
He starts to
and
understand what Russ is talking about at that point in time.
exactly because from that point he's just like you're crazy, oh you're still crazy. But now he sees this and now he realizes it, and you still as the reader or the audience you still don't know what he exactly saw, but you know that it was dark enough as a family man, because he was a family man. He had a
Right.
daughter, and he did love his daughters. You know that whatever he saw, he put into his own personal life, and he went, "This is evil, and I've got to stop
Yep.
this."
Yep. And
Yeah, gosh, amazing writing.
oh, it's so good. It's so good. I can't. I need to watch it again. This will be like my fourth or fifth time, watching that.
Yeah,
And you know, with Lovecraft too, when you read his works, if you've ever read anything he's done,
I haven't.
oh, it is so good, and it's dry because it's old timey because it was written in the early 1900s, and
Mhm.
it's very scientific and very language heavy. But when Lovecraft describes a monster, or when he has his characters describe a monster, no two people describe it the same way. There's
Interesting.
always a change, so you can never really pinpoint down what's going on. On top of, he sets his stories to where the narrators are unreliable because they've been driven to madness. They don't know what they've seen. They can't remember what
Interesting.
they've seen. They can only remember what struck fear into their hearts. And you don't really know what this thing is. You never know what it is. You know,
Interesting.
and a common misconception with people is that, oh, well, he did come up with Cthulhu, but there never was any like real general design for Cthulhu until later on when his protege took over everything and kind of expanded the mythos a lot.
Mhm.
And Lovecraft's whole thing was he wanted people to be afraid of he wanted to showcase the fear of the unknown and the fear of the cosmos and not knowing what's out there, not knowing what could be on the other side of that dimension door. And that's what I want to try and do. I want people to go, well, what's on the other side? What's
Mhm.
there that we can't see or that we can't perceive? Because there's whole color spectrums that we don't even know about, that we can't even think of, that other creatures can see. So what's there that we can't see? And that strikes fear into people's hearts. And as sadistic as it sounds, I love doing that. I love doing
That's
that. I
awesome.
love watching people's reactions to things that strike fear into them because it's such a primal, natural reaction. You really get a sense of who they are from watching what they're afraid of.
For sure,
You
100%.
know. So we've actually gone the longest I've ever gone. That
Boom.
was
That was easy,
awesome. It was
man.
awesome, man. You got any advice for any aspiring writers?
Give up.
Give up. It's
Um,
done. Don't do it.
yeah, I guess my advice would be just start. Just like do it. If you're an artist, start drawing. Like the only like just work. I think that's one thing that I will say people do admire about me is that I do put in the work. I work freaking hard, and the only reason why I work hard is because the only way that things are gonna get done and things are gonna get made is if you work. So if you're a writer, oh my gosh, I heard this. I was talking to someone once, and it just drove me crazy. It was a writer, and they said, "Oh yeah, Tyler, I'm a really good writer." And I went, "Okay." And they go, I'm having a hard time writing." I went, "I don't know what that means." He goes, "Well, I'm really good at coming up with ideas, but when I sit down to write them, I struggle." I went, "Oh, so you're really hard at putting in the work
Yeah.
to get those ideas down." He goes, "Well, what do you mean?" I was like, "Gosh, being a writer isn't just having an idea. It's being able to put that idea on paper and formulate and like put it down as a story. And like when like people think, oh, okay, I can be a writer, I got a story. Well, frick, most people can't because it is work.
Yep.
So my advice to people is get ready to put in some hard work, get a comfy chair and start typing that story and and be okay with
Yep.
failure. Mike, I have this right here. This is my very first comic that I made with a creator. His name was Bobby
Mm-hmm.
Altman. A lot of respect for this guy. This cover is probably the best piece of artwork in the entire book. Let me just give you a snippet of how awesome my art was at the time. Oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
oh yeah, that's what I'm
Oh yeah.
talking about. You'd freaking give up your grandma to own this art. So
Watch out, Alex Ross. We
this
got a new guy on the scene.
exactly. No, this art is absolute shite. And to me, that's okay because you have to start
Yeah.
somewhere. you have to start somewhere. So like nowadays, I'm like this is one of the pieces of art I drew for my campaign for the trade. It was a trading card. So this is what I drew.
Oh damn.
So compare that to, this stuff in here. I've come a long
Always
way.
be moving forward. Always be moving
Exactly.
forward.
But you can't move forward if you're
Yep.
not working. And that's what drives me crazy because I know a ton of writers and artists who entered the scene the same time as that I did, and they're still in the same
Yep.
spot. And nothing drives me more crazy than when I see them complain. And then they go, well, someone said like a couple weeks ago, so mad. They're like, well, Tyler, I was like, guys, you guys need to do this. They go, well, Tyler, not all of us can have, 4,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember the day they just fell down from the
Right.
sky and I'll hit the subscribe button. I was like, I remember that. And they go, what are you doing? What are you talking about, Tyler? I was like, I've have over I have 400 on my channel.
Yeah.
Like besides making comics, I made 400 videos.
Yep.
Um and really if you think about that, like statistically that's only 10 subscribers per video. That's actually really bad. Um but yeah, you got to put in the work. If you want something, you got to put in the work
It's the reason they
and
call it the
always have a fun
grind.
time doing it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And make sure you have a fun time doing
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If you're not having fun, that's probably the universe saying that you shouldn't do this.
Again, it's one of those things that when you have passion for something, you will always have fun doing it. And once that passion and that
Exactly.
fun leaves, readers will see right through your bullshit. They will see
So,
right through it.
real quick, if you don't mind me
No, go on.
telling this quick story, this isn't my story. So, this is a book called Rags. This is the published edition. They went through Antarctic Press, but these guys have a Patreon. So basically, the premise is this girl Regina. She wakes up butt naked. So if you join their Patreon, you get the uncensored version where it's just vagina and nipples out there. I got the censored version through their publisher. But basically, Brian Ball and Trent Luther, they got drunk one day and were like, "Let's make a comic book," and they started shooting out ideas. And they're like, "Okay, now we have to find an artist," and they found an artist, and they were just making this comic, just literally for shits and giggles. And they still do it just for shits and giggles. Like I think they just got dropped from Antarctic Press, and they go, "Yeah, we don't care." And people, and like they have a very successful Patreon. I think they get like $5,000 a month from their Patreon. Um, and I asked Brian, I'm like, gosh, like what motivates you guys to keep, doing this? Because they're still going strong and they're putting out a great book. And he was like, man, I'm just having fun. I went, okay, but like what else? He goes, well, regardless of like the fact that you're holding the book and other people are holding the book, we were gonna make it no matter what.
Yeah.
And that struck a chord to me. I was like, yeah. He's like, if no one read it, I don't care. We were still gonna make the book. If zero people read it, we were still gonna make the book. And I think for me right now with chefs, that's kind of been the thing I've been having the most fun ever making this book, and I want people to read it.
Yeah.
But if people don't, I'm just gonna be like, well, I had a good time. I had a good time making it. But yeah, like you said, like if you have passion for something, you're gonna have fun.
Yep. If you build it, they will come.
Exactly.
Yep. But all right, man. Well, we hit the hour and a half mark. It was a fun time,
Easy peasy.
man. Oh, dude, time flew by. It was great. Go ahead and find him at Tyler underscore C underscore world on Twitter. I'm going to drop a link to his YouTube, his webpage as well. You guys go give him some love, give him a follow. It's great having you on, man. Wonderful time.
Thanks, dude.
Hope to talk to you again on here someday. And I can't wait for Chef to drop. I'm going to go ahead and back
Thanks,
it
man.
when it drops. You guys keep
I
posted.
appreciate
I'll
that.
be posting a link on Twitter to the Kickstarter whenever it's ready to come out. I'm gonna start doing Kickstarter roundups at the end of every month in February, so I'll
Oh,
throw
that's
that into
awesome.
there as well. Just kind of because I want to back it off. Backing off to once a month is also so I can start working on some other projects. One of which being the
Mhm.
Kickstarter monthly roundup to help promote some people and to do some things that way. Um, but You guys, thanks for hanging out with us. It was a great time. I can't wait to see y'all next week. Next week, we got Tim Laddie coming on. He is the artist for Ghostbusters and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and he's also working on a new Kickstarter project for himself that he's writing and doing the art for himself. Hometown boy, family friend of mine. Can't wait to have him on. It's going to be a good time. Y'all come back next week. See y'all later.